Hello viewers, Super GT here. Welcome back to Group 3 around the Death Chicane for about the billionth time. You can see here I've made very many videos about this circuit and car combination. Now, this track is dominated by the Toyota Supra, as you can see. One of the most overpowered cars, probably the most overpowered car in the game. There it is, the Toyota Supra, pretty much unstoppable in terms of qualifying pace. But today we're going to try and take it on in the Toyota FT1. Can it be beaten? Let's take a look. Okay, so we're going to start off with qualifying, of course. Now I could be cheeky and qualify in the Supra but then race in something different, but that would defeat the objective of this video, which is to try to beat the Supra in something different. And we're going to go with a fellow Toyota, the FT1, a bit more of a handling machine, but around the Trail Seaside circuits you do need some straight line speed, which is going to be the tricky thing against us. Another thing against us is the chicane itself. As you can see there, deciding to visit Barrier and send myself to the Shadow Realm. We get a 35.8 before sending ourselves into the Shadow Realm once again, and then for a bit of variety I decided to bin it at a different corner before quitting and joining the race. Now I thought my lap was alright, but clearly not, because it's only good enough for 14th on the grid. Pretty shocking, to be honest. So there's a lot of work to be done in the race. We're going to start the race on the medium tyre. And let's take a look at the grid, shall we? Because there are 8 Toyota Supras in the race. 8 of them, 1 of them behind, 7 in front. And our main objective really is to try to beat as many of those as possible. Well, the actual objective is to win the race and beat everyone. That's kind of the idea, but we're going to try and do a specific challenge here and beat as many Supras as possible. Okay, so beginning the race, 14th on the grid, a fair amount of work to be done. We've got a Beetle immediately behind, and we're going to go in deep on the brakes to try to defend our position to make sure he doesn't go for that move, and he doesn't, thankfully. So let's settle into this race. 12 laps. Tyre wear will be a factor, and possibly an inherent weakness of the Supra will be its tyres, but we will find out as the race develops. So back into the toe of the car in front. You can already begin to see some battles forming as some different interpretations of the tyres. People going on to different tyres at the start of the race. Some on medium, some on softs. Gone for the medium, gone for the worst of the two, and then we'll presumably go with we will go with the soft tyre towards the end of the race. Okay, so the Spaniard there just defending the position, as he's fully entitled to do, down into the downhill hairpin. Through the Death Chicane for the first time. Is anyone going to die? On this occasion, no. So it's not really living up to its name there, is it? Just look how close this battle is. Lots of cars in very close proximity. At the front of this train is 8th position. So we're not too far away from the top 10. Onto the main straight. Now look at the speed difference here. Toyota Supra just really winding itself up to get some good straight line speed. And there's not much you can do about it when you don't have straight line speed, as you can see. So we just get dropped very easily down the main straight. Late on the brakes though, catch it immediately back up. So I think he was being a little bit tentative there into that braking zone. So at this point here, we do have the Beetle for company just behind. So yes, I want to make forward progress, but I always have to worry about the car behind. And he looks half up the inside if you just look at the radar there. So we still haven't made an overtake. But coming over the crest here, it's going to be 2 by 2 as we come into the triple chicane. And this is where things begin to change. Just watch the Italian here, driving slightly wide. That's going to cost him on the exit here. He ends up in the gravel with the far from optimal line there. And we gain our first position of the race. We're going to gain a couple more here, I think. And indeed we are. The two Spaniards having a bit of a civil war, and we move up 2 positions up into 11th. So that's 3 positions in maybe about 3 corners, and some progress has begun to be made. Is that the right way of saying it? Probably not. Right. As you can see, still very close. It's one of those tracks where you just have a little moment, you have a little mistake, and immediately you can lose a couple of positions very quickly. I mean, that's just been demonstrated on this very lap. So, up the main straight, into the toe of the Supra. This is the thing I'm relying on a lot in this race. This Toyota FT1 does not have great straight line speed. The Supra does. I need to make the most of the slipstream down all of the straights by staying in the toe of a Supra, ideally. So, we can capitalise on that. We're trying to make the most of that throughout the race. Now, the thing to make note of at this point in time is the penalty for the car in 9th place, the Corvette, driven by the Finnish driver, into the right-hander. We've got a bit of lag up in front as well. So he's going to serve a 0.5 second penalty here. Is that enough to let us get through? Yes, it is. Just about enough. And we slot into 10th. So the Corvette has been displaced. We're into the top 10. So that's a good start of the race, especially on the harder of the two compounds, the medium. We'll go over to the soft maybe about halfway into the race. Down the hill, into the hairpin. And we have lag stations enabled as the Irish driver there, looking like he's on his good old dial-up connection with a 1-bar connection. Bit distracting, and it's the last thing you want as you go through the depth chicane. Thankfully, not dying, but losing a fair amount of time, as you can see. Burr's just up in front there, gaining time on us, and we get re-overtaken by not just the Corvette but the Beetle as well. But then watch this moment, this is pretty funny. The Corvette tries to turn right into the pit lane, but the Beetle's in the way, and then the Beetle just loses a ton of time, a ton of speed, and then I get both positions back immediately. Now, okay, the Beetle back behind us. This lap needed to be a good one to try to make sure he doesn't get back past us, because I don't have the slipstream. I need to catch back up with these guys in front to help me down the straights. So at the moment, I'm just sitting there like a sitting duck on the straights with no straight line speed. And here you see a bit of a dispute coming into depth chicane, and that is going to lose the pair of them a fair amount of time. So the Supra's engaging in civil war. Plenty of civil wars going on here in this race. And again, Burr's just come back up the inside. They're just losing chunks of time fighting each other like this. And all that's done is brought me back into the fight. And the Irishman goes into the pit lane. A couple of people have gone into the pit lane at this point. So you can see here we've moved up into 6th position. And this is where things go wrong for this Spaniard here, because he tries to go around the outside, judges it way too late, brakes way too late. And I have to take a slightly wider line because I thought he was going to come back on. He kind of did, but he was ghosted, so I didn't really need to do that. But best to be safe than sorry. We move up into 5th, and we're just on the fringe of the slipstream here, so we need to make sure that we don't get lost by Burrs. And as we go over the crest, it's fine. We're about half a second behind. Into the chicane at the end of the lap. We're still about half a second behind. We need to make sure we get this right. And we do. Just about okay. And you see here lots of straight line sections, so making the most of the slipstream. Absolutely essential to a good race time here around the circuit. And this is where we are going to go into the pit lane. Move over to the right hand side, dip in, change over from the mediums onto the softs for the rest of the race. And away we go. So fantastic job by the Toyota boys there. Now we return to the circuit in 13th place. So you might think, well, all of that progress is undone, but some people still haven't made their pit stop for a start, and we are on the stronger tyre for the remainder of the race. So we've got the soft tyre on, we can get our head down, try and get some overtakes done, and see where we can finish. We started the race in 14th, currently only one position ahead of that in 13th, but I'm sure that we can gain many more positions and get well inside the top 10 if we race well and it all goes to plan and we don't die. Because dying halfway through a race obviously is not ideal. Let's see if we can avoid dying here at the depth chicane for the 6th time. There's a yellow flag. Well, someone else dies. Our first victim of the race. There he is. R.I.P. in peace to that poor soul. As we continue, his death is my gain. So we move up into 12th, and we have our eyes on a couple of positions just up front there. We've got the Finnish driver in 10th, who we overtook slightly earlier in the race. And actually, we're going to move up a couple of positions here as some of the Spaniards go for their pit stops. And just come out of the pit lane there, that was the Beetle driver. So we still have to keep an eye on that guy there. We're going to bump draft Burrs in the Supra and try to use his slipstream, at least for this lap. But I don't want to get held up by him because I think he might be on the medium tyre. And therefore, at some point he will start to slow me down. We need to go past him at some point, ideally. So through here, through the triple chicane, he takes it. He goes in. He commits a bit early. That means he gets spat out on the exit. Spat out. That's not a word. Spat out on the exit. He takes a horrible line. We're going to go up the inside into the downhill hairpin, and then claim 9th position. Okay, so now I need to get the def chicane correct and try to pull a gap here, otherwise he's just going to come straight back past me with the power of the Supra. And we take it very nicely indeed, if I may say so myself. Now down towards the final corner of the lap. You see there, he's very close behind. Is he going to go for the move? No, too far. Going to have to take this nicely, commit nice and early on the power, as early as you can get. Use all of the curb on the exit. And then we're away onto the main straight. Now he is going to gain on me here. He has a lot of slipstream, a lot of speed, and I'm just going to hope that he doesn't go for the inside, and he doesn't. I don't want to have to defend unnecessarily. You're just going to lose time. Thankfully, he doesn't go for the move. Plays it nice and sensible, sticks behind, and we can continue trying to catch up with the Finnish driver again. He's obviously had a good couple of laps to get back past me. So this lap here just needs to be a tidy one. Try to get back into the slipstream range. We're about 8-9 tenths behind. Just need a couple more tenths, and then we are into the slipstream. And it's just one of those circuits where slipstream is just so crucial, just so important to get it. And it's massive for your lap time, especially in qualifying. If you ever do an FIA race around here, slipstream absolutely crucial. Gain half a second, maybe more, around one lap. So he takes a very deep line there, bit of a mistake. I'm going to go in here side by side. No, we're not. We're going to back out, make the sensible decision. You see what happens when you fight side by side. The two Supras did it a couple of laps ago. You just lose lots of time. You need to just back out, play sensible, play the long game. And that's exactly what we do there. And up in front, another Supra just come to the fore as he makes a mistake through the chicane. And therefore we have a very good chance of finishing 7th here, which would be a very good result, I think, from 14th on the grid, moving past a fair amount of Supras and a fair amount of cars overall. In towards turn 1, it's actually turn 2, but first big braking zone on the lap, so same thing. You see the three of us here, very close battle. We're going to try and make it past the Corvette as quickly as possible because we have caught him very quickly, and then we want to try and get past that Supra as quickly as well. I'll look up the inside, more sort of in hope than expectation, and then the Corvette goes wide, and then here just makes a very weird decision just to let me go. So I'm not sure really why, but there you go. Sometimes people just give you positions for free. So a late Christmas present there. So I'll take it very happily. We move up into 8th, now with 7th immediately in front. Let's try and overtake one more Supra and try to get this 7th position. So coming up towards the chicane here, this is where things can get tricky because when you're right behind another car, you just lose all your visual references, and it can be quite tricky just to see the apex. And it's a very quick chicane, and it's very tricky to see exactly what you're aiming for sometimes with someone so close in front. Now here, there's no point in going for the move into this final corner because you'll just get overtaken down the main straight. So you have to be quite tactical with the way that you operate your overtakes in a slower car. Slower on a straight line, that is. So, across the line at the end of lap 9, sorry. We're going to bump draft him there. And then, at the last minute, we're going to betray him and go up the inside and take 7th. So now it's really a case of just, can we get away from this guy? We have to get away from him, because if he has the toe down the main straight on the next lap, he will almost certainly just drive past me. There's not much I can do about it. So I need to have a really good lap here, nice solid lap, no mistakes, get away from him, try and break the toe if possible. He's going to follow me as long as he can and give himself a chance, because there's only 2.5 laps left. And so you're just at that stage of the race where people are a bit more on edge and they're a bit more willing to fight for positions. You know, early on in the race, you're much more likely to see people just let each other go past and just save time. But towards the end, the dynamic changed a little bit. People are just going to be a bit more aggressive with their position, keeping position, trying to get position, as there's not much time left in the race. This has been a good lap so far, but we are still just within slipstream range of the car behind the Supra. I have to have a good chicane here. Look at that, skipping across the curb. And the Supra behind just grazing the barrier R on the exit. And that puts him just outside of slipstream range, I believe. We're going to have a good final corner here, though, just to make sure of it. So that's actually taken fairly nicely. And you see the gap there extending to almost a second. So we have escaped the slipstream. That's exactly what we wanted to do on lap 10. We achieved it. But by the end of lap 11, things had slightly changed. He had a really good lap, and I had a fairly sort of average lap. And he managed to get back within the slipstream range. Just about. He would just get back into it by the time we crossed the start line. Tried to break the toe, but he's more than aware of that tactic. And this gives him a chance. If he can just get back within a couple of tenths by the depth chicane on this lap, he has a chance into the final corner. So that is exactly what we're trying to avoid here. This must be a good lap, and it must be a good lap for him if he wants to have that chance. So coming through this corner here, this is where it's going to unravel for him, because we're going to go into the apex quite nicely. And you see the gap here just immediately goes up. He makes quite a big mistake. And the only thing that can stop me now is the chicane itself. So let's just make sure we get through here okay for the 12th time. We're on fairly worn tyres by this point, so it's quite easy to get it wrong. But thankfully we've navigated it 12 times without meeting our fate. And we're going to come across the line to finish in 7th, which is not too bad given we started 14th, had quite a lot of work to do, had quite a lot of cars to fight through. So as you can see here, the final results, we managed to beat 6 of the Supras, and we were beaten by 2 of them. So I think that's a fairly decent result from 14th on the grid. Now let's just take a look at a couple of replays here. I wanted to have a look at Burrs, because this guy, he's a very fast guy, just has he has some moments, let's just put it that way. And he was a fairly big moment into the first corner on the first lap. Huge moment of lag. And he loses 3 positions. He's on the soft tyre, so he wants to make the most of it, but then that happens immediately. And then coming down here, this was lap 2. I'm immediately behind him, as you can see there. The 2 Spaniards engage in civil war, and we both go through. So that was a good moment for him. But then a couple of laps later, when it was at lap 7, this is when I go past him. And it's always interesting to watch yourself from someone else's perspective, just to judge if your moves were fine, and on that occasion that move was just fine. Lap 9, and he just grazes the barrier R and loses a bunch of position once again. He moves down into 13th, and it wasn't the only time he did it. He did it once more, and unfortunately goes into the barrier for the second time. Goes down to the 14th. So this is a really good battle for the lead, and so Anderson comes out the pit lane here on medium tyres at the beginning of lap 8. So 5 laps left to go at this point. And then you've got Twitch Somi here, the Italian, in the Beetle with a couple of lap old tyres on the softs. He gets past his fellow Italian, the Italian actually in the Supra there, the highest placed highest placed Supra in the race. So the Beetle and the FT1 actually look very solid in the race here. And maybe the Supra isn't so overpowered. It's just it has an inherent weakness of tyre wear, I think. Coming down into the final corner, the Beetle managed to go through into the lead. He's on the soft tyre, Anderson here in the FT1 on the medium tyre managed to keep with him, and there's just a slight corner cut there, very slight. As you can see, the Italian gets a 0.5 second penalty, so a very fine margin, and it was cut there probably by about 1 pixel. Gets himself a penalty, moves down into second once he serves the penalty, but he has a chance here if he can get back into the slipstream at the end of the race, into the final corner. You see the Beetle and the FT1 actually fairly similar in straight line speed. I mean, I experienced that with the Beetle that was behind me throughout the race, and the Beetle here not able to get that move done. So he looked like that slight corner cut by 1 pixel has cost him the race. So it just shows you how very fine margins can dictate who wins and who loses. But yeah, there's a very good battle between the two of them at the front. They were both very quick. And here's an example of how things can go spectacularly wrong in just one moment. So here's a Supra. He sat in 11th at this point. This is lap 2. He goes up the inside, and this is the Civil War we've referenced a couple of times. It doesn't quite turn out for him very well. And then just a minor indiscretion there turns into quite a big one. He ends up wiping out another driver. I'm sure it wasn't intentional. He just kind of turned accidentally into him. He lets him go a lap later, and by this point they're both miles off. They're both way off as a result of that incident. And then here's some Shadow Realm entries. So first off, that car going into the wall. And then, if you can't overtake your opponents, then why not just introduce them to our good friend Barry R, as he does here, into the final corner. The Supra ends up giving a nice little kiss to Barry, and that's the end of the race for him, really. But that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new to the channel and haven't subscribed, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button for plenty more. But in the meantime, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.